Okay, we're going back in business. All right, so we've secured our elastic on both sides. I've sewed it in and I trimmed off the excess. So now we're ready to attach only one side of our front and back piece. We're only going to do one side. And I'm going to do this on the regular machine, but you can do this next step completely on the serger if you want. Now, if it's not exactly a match, you don't have to worry about it, because you can just trim off that little tiny bit. It won't be much, and it's not going to affect anything on the finished project. See how that's a little off? So we're just going to go ahead and trim that down so it matches. And that's just the difference in that chalk line. That's the only problem with that. Okay, I'm going to sew on my regular machine, and then what you can do is you can let me pull this elastic out. Do you see what I mean about that 1/4 inch on that elastic, since it is kind of tight? Just go ahead and put a pin here and keep that stretched out a little bit. Okay, so we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam right up here. So I'm going to do it on the regular machine, and then I'll do it on the serger. So if you have just, excuse me, if you have just a regular machine, just go ahead and do a zigzag to finish off that edge, or an overlock stitch, whatever you have. Either one. You just want to keep that fabric, since you are pulling it on and off the doll with just going up and down the body. You don't want that fabric to keep fraying on you. So just overlock it or zigzag it. Just give it a nice finish. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so there's that. So like I said, zigzag this or overlock it for a nice finish. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to our serger machine. So I'm just going to serge that edge. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom because I don't need to secure the serging thread on here. Different petal. Okay, so I'm going to go from the bottom to the top where the elastic is. I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to come back and go off the edge. I have my cutter down because I don't want to cut anything, because I just want to keep that nice edge. So even though it won't look as nice, I don't want to cut anything. So I'm just going ahead and put that there. I need my close-up light so I can see what I'm doing. Otherwise I can't have a clue what's going on in there. It's hard to see where you're actually sewing on the serger. I know people say they love it, but it's really hard to see because your foot is just so big in there. So let's go ahead and start, okay? And we're just going to keep going down, going down. Okay, and then when we get close to that elastic and it hits the elastic, you're going to have a tough time getting over that elastic. Okay, so I'm just going to hand crank it. Okay, I went off one stitch. I'm going to lift my foot up. I'm going to turn it, switch my fabric underneath, go back down, and I'm going to come back the other way. Okay, and I'm just going to go off the edge. And that'll secure those stitches in place. I went off a little too fast. But anyway, see how I got that, so I don't have any raw edges up there, so you can just cut this now. Get rid of these loose ends. And this one you can just cut completely off. And that'll just give you a raw edge. Yeah, I went off too fast on here. Okay. Okay, so now we've got that. So we've got one edge going. When we do this, we want to push everything to the front, and the reason we want to do that, if you push it to the back and you have it on the doll, you're going to see this big old lump. But if you push it this way and you do a few little tacks in here with just a needle and thread, it'll lay really flat for you. I don't know if I had it here. Yeah, see, I serged this and then I pushed it all to the front, and now when you put it on the doll, it lays flat. You don't have that big old lump. On the other ones, I didn't do it that way, and you can really tell the difference. So unless you want to do so separately and hide that completely, you can do that under this bodice piece, but it's just too much work, and these are just simple little things, you know. So I didn't do it, but it's whatever you, oops, sorry, I just hit the camera. I hope I didn't go off. Okay, so whatever you want to do. Okay, so now since we're going to push our fabric to the front, we're going to take this and we're going to put a pin in it here, because we want to make sure that lays flat and we want it all to go straight to the front like that. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our regular machine and we're going to go back to our bias tape. Make sure the camera's not off. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do from the front side, we're going to sew our bias tape from the front crotch to the back crotch. And we're just going to line this up directly with that seam. We're not even going to, we're going to overlap it a little bit so it's easy to see what we're sewing on. So we don't want to pull this bias tape, we just want it to be, just flow nice right along that leg edge without pulling it at all. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, we're going to sew right in that channel. And now when you're doing, if you're doing the little animators or the little Princess and Me dolls that have the really small crotch, you're going to end up having to overlap the second piece of bias tape. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to insert your elastic and finish that one side of elastic out, and then do the other side after you put in that second. The crotch across here is the very last seam. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this in. No pulling, we don't want any pulling. So let's put our machine back to center because we're sewing in the ditch. That's the wrong one. Okay, these pins out of the way. Hope I'm in camera. I went ahead and hit the camera holder. Okay, just open and stitch as you go. Now we're going to take the baby doll and we're going to put it on the leg too before we finish off our elastic, so we know exactly where that elastic is going to be on that doll. You can make your own too. You can make your own bias tape. Okay, so let's go ahead and just cut that off. Okay, so we've got that sewn on and we went right up to the edge of that. So we don't have any trimming to do on that. So now all we're going to do is turn it to the front, and if we need to stretch it a little bit, this is the point where you can. So let's go ahead and turn to the front, put a pin on it. That's what I said about using matching in case you see a little bit in the front. Just gives it a little cuteness. Keep seeing that hat. Looks like the cat in the hat. I mean, the same color anyway. I mean, even though I know it's one of those crowns. Nope, top of a cathedral. Okay, so there we are, right? So we're going to go ahead and sew that now. And we don't want to pucker it if we can help it. So if we do, we can stretch it as we sew. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure we've got... Don't worry if it doesn't exactly get to the end. It's not the end of the world. Excuse me. Okay, I'm going to sew in the center again because I want to go as close to the edge as I can. So let's just go ahead and start stitching. And we've got our seam to the front. Okay. All right, so there you go. There's your first seam. So we can go ahead and put in our second seam. Now I'm going to have enough room to do the other leg without having to put my elastic in yet. See how I'm going to be able to sew that. Whoops, it's going to be the other side. But I'll have enough room to be able to sew that and make that turn without having to put my elastic in now. I think I'll have enough room. If not, we'll go ahead and put the elastic in. Yeah, I'll have enough room. It'll be just close enough, but it'll work. Okay, so I'm going to put in my second seam now. I mean my second, because I want that nice and smooth. I'm going to do it from the front. So I'll go ahead and cut that off. Okay, so I'm going to trim that, and then I'm going to just go right along the edge. Okay, so we've got our 2 lines of stitching in. We're going to insert our elastic, cut off all our loose threads. Okay, so the next step is to sew our other side together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do it off camera so I can save some recording time. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come up this side. I'm going to leave the crotch to the very, very last thing because we've got to insert our elastic and test it on our baby doll. So let's go ahead and line those up. That's almost a perfect fit there. So I'm going to do the same thing, go back to my 1/4 of an inch. And get that side seam sewn up. Okay, so I'll be back with this side seam done and serged. It'll look just exactly like this side over here. Hopefully I'll do a little nicer job on that flip over. But that's what we're looking at right there. Okay, I'll be right back.